Hey there, welcome to episode 150 of the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program. I'm your host, Managing Director of the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, Dan Hugo. We're recording this at 7:40 a.m. Pacific Standard Time in the Greater Vegas area on this Tuesday, December 30th, 2025, the final episode of this audio program for this calendar year. We did our retrospective episode last week. So this week, given the proximity to New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, it seemed appropriate to wrap up a couple of things as we look forward to, well, the title and topic of today's episode is Engage. So that's that. If you're not familiar with the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, we are a Nevada nonprofit corporation and a 501c3 public charity. Our purpose statement is to enable and encourage ideation, innovation, and implementation to make our communities better. Innovation, just like in our name, Innovate for Vegas Foundation. Innovation, and in fact, ideation and implementation can take many forms. Not everything is an app. We were renamed from the Code for Vegas Foundation, and that itself was a reboot of the original Code for Vegas, which was part of the Code for America effort a decade ago or so. But innovation can take many forms, and so those are our pursuits. The Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program chronicles some of these efforts, occasionally an interview, although that was in the early days. We'll try to bring those back at some point, maybe with some video, who knows. But the continued evolution of our foundation and the emergence of, hopefully, more innovation pursuits, more innovative pursuits, and more civic volunteers taking on those challenges will be in the offing. If not this year, then the next year or so on. These things take time. Hopefully, wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a brief summary of one sentence, which I will read, along with the usual 2 links for our weekly episodes. No additional links for this episode today. So there you go. Let's get on with it so we can get on with the end of the year. The episode description, the summary is as follows. Star Trek TNG fans may be imagining the captain uttering, that's Captain Jean-Luc Picard, by the way, the captain uttering the title of this episode. As the year actually ends, we are changing our approach to connecting with our audience. And this is actually something I've gone over a little bit in previous episodes, so we're just putting a bow on it today. The 2 links are homepage for our activities and our homepage for our foundation, the business side. Innovate for Vegas, Innovate FOR Vegas, no space, Innovate for Vegas.org. That's where our projects, our initiatives, our participants, our documents for each initiative and so on, the whole process, the activities that we are pursuing can be found there. And then remember, we're a Nevada nonprofit corporation. So the Innovate for Vegas, same spelling, .foundation. That's all one word, Innovate for Vegas, period. And then foundation, FOUNDATION. Innovate for Vegas.foundation. That's where we keep the business side. Why separate? Because if you're looking for our bylaws, you may or may not be looking for our GitHub repositories for our initiatives or our issues for those initiatives or things along those lines. So 2 sides of the same coin, both are always a work in progress. Keep those handy. So now let's get on with the episode. And I'll start with something I've already said. I've mentioned it a few times in a few episodes recently, in a few episodes of this audio program and in some others that I produce each week. Things are quiet of late with the civic volunteer winter and the standard Vegas ghosting policy in effect from the various government and non-government types here. So essentially, civic volunteerism is at a low point, certainly from our perspective. This is not limited to Vegas, but certainly coupled with the Vegas ghosting, the ghost protocols, I like to refer to it. It makes for getting responses tricky. And this is from our government folks, the government staff, and elected official types, and then non-government agencies and so on. It's very quiet. One of the main I make myself laugh sometimes. Somebody has to. One of the main challenges in a place like Greater Vegas is that of discovery. And something else I've mentioned a few times. Anyone in the world who has heard anything of Las Vegas knows about the gambling, the party, maybe more recently the football and the hockey, maybe someday the baseball. But these, the fun economy, some might say, trademarked by the UNLV Office of Economic Development, February of 2025, it was granted. But these, along with crime and politics, are the main focus of local media, including local influencers. Though lately, the downturn in tourism is the hot topic with the YouTubers. Hearing about the immense global innovation hub and the evolution of the diversified economy here in Vegas is tricky outside of LinkedIn. Whether these are truths or aspirations at any given time in a culture that is very much show me what you got over show me what you're working on, which really could be followed by show me how we can work on that together. So we don't have those yet. So as I have mentioned a few times, this is a great time to do some tuning, flip the script, and to spend some time, effort, and expertise on engagement with peer and adjacent cohorts near and far, individuals at large in our communities, starting with near and later far. So think local first, but act globally if you like. And then reduce outreach effort that has been to date wasted. So stop waiting for those replies. They are not coming. Speaking of LinkedIn, hopefully we were not, but we will. We will now. Speaking of LinkedIn, our page follower count has increased by like 15% this year. That's crazy, isn't it? I don't like speaking about LinkedIn. Most of that in the latter 6 months, in fact. So since the summer, since one of our board members who was supposed to be doing outreach and engagement, but who never did, moved on. So somebody who had an actual interest took that on when not podcasting. So we have more people and more Greater Vegas people, in fact, following us on LinkedIn. That should be good, right? Now, unfortunately, this is largely meaningless with essentially zero engagement from all those various page followers. Now, this is with regard to the LinkedIn followers. This is not to say that individual people don't occasionally take an interest in what we're working on. Occasionally. While LinkedIn is a favorite here in Greater Vegas, it has, over the years, become something of a megaphone with a crank handle where individuals, companies, and agencies post there for reach. Various people react or comment or both. I was told one time by someone who used to work for the city of Las Vegas that they are really encouraged to like the posts from their city employees, staff, colleagues, etc. So anything Vegas related, they were really encouraged to engage with those posts on LinkedIn. Mandates. The crank handle, as in turning the crank to get the message out. So when you do those things, various people reacting or commenting or both, the algorithm serves up the rewards in the form of a wider reach. So all those posts would get seen by more people thanks to all that engagement. As I've said more and more, if you are not following the right people in Vegas on LinkedIn, but also in real life, much less connected to them, you're probably missing out on some details that are not shared at large where they really should be. So there should not be a need to go to LinkedIn to find out what's going on. But unfortunately, that is the way for now. The plan for LinkedIn, from our perspective, maintain that page, post more updates and fewer audio program links. I don't believe people are going to our LinkedIn page to find out what our most recent linked audio program is. They're going there if they see anything to perhaps notice what we're working on, not to listen to audio. And focus our attention and energies on a better, more innovative platform that drives discovery and engagement without the algorithm working against and without hiding information behind a login and a network graph. I myself joined LinkedIn in August of 2003. Yes, that's correct. 22 years ago. And after 22 years and then some, so August to now, so there's a few more months in there, I am personally mostly off LinkedIn. We can all do better. So LinkedIn has its place. The network graph is still somewhat useful, but there's so much more. There is so much more. LinkedIn is a platform, platforms in general. Did you know we have an account? Our foundation, we have an account on Blue Sky and another on Fostodon. We used to have an Instagram account. We used to have a Twitter account. Engagement is essentially zero on all of these, definitely zero on Instagram. It was also zero on Twitter, so that one was dropped even before Instagram. But Instagram was dropped a long way back. Blue Sky is a maybe. We're kind of there because it's where everybody jumped to from Twitter. Personally, I don't see a tremendous amount of value there, so it's a maybe. Fosstodon, which is a Mastodon server, and Mastodon in general, fits into our overarching Fediverse plans. It's also just a better implementation, in my opinion. If the civic volunteer winter abates, which it will, and we increase posting activity, which we will, maybe we can make our social media outreach work somewhat, but aiming into the Fediverse rather than LinkedIn, probably rather than Blue Sky. The problem with platforms, they are built for profit for their investors. If they're a commercial platform owned by a massive corporation with massive funding, that means massive expectation for returns on on that funding. So they're for the benefit of the investors, not for the benefit of their users. You can read through Cory Doctorow's latest book on this topic, which I've just finished 2 days ago, yesterday. I usually clean it up and I call it impoopification. You can replace one 4-letter word in that title with another. It's all one big word. It was word of the year recently, I think, last year maybe, or maybe this year. I can't remember. There are so many different words worthy of accolade. But it's an interesting book. Cory, Mr. Doctorow, Dr. Cory? No, one of those. He's been making the rounds promoting the book, but also promoting the general notion. He is a frequent speaker at, what is it called? DEF CON. Thank you. Totally spaced on the name. He speaks at DEF CON. He speaks at a variety of different technical forums. He worked for EFF for a while. I first came across him when he was working with Boing Boing when I was working at Salon. I've never met him, but he's an interesting character, very knowledgeable, has a lot to say. So definitely a book worth reading. Suffice to say, making a site like Twitter or X or whatever the interposer to an audience is feeding their investors first. X needs to pay their bills. They are not really so concerned with making sure that Innovate for Vegas Foundation audience gets what we're trying to give them. When the goal is engaging the audience, that's what we're trying to do. So that's not X's concern, that's our concern. And if we still had our X account and we're using it, we would be placing X between ourselves and the people we're trying to reach. Why do that? If the pendulum is swinging back towards some sort of internet sovereignty, let's hope so, individuals and other entities could be self-publishing, for example. Maybe individuals can gain more control over their consumption if they want to. And this is always the limiter with things like this. We can do our part and lean into the sovereign platforms and enabling our audience to reach us directly. With this in mind, in a place like Greater Vegas, which believes it is some sort of global innovation hub, and it could be, by the way, and it is right there in our foundation name, where we are pro-innovation, which does not simply fall from the sky. It actually takes a little bit of effort. So if the pendulum is swinging back, which I personally hope it is, we really should be a part of some drive towards locality or region scale. So locality scale or region scale information. I just banged on my desk. Sorry. Information sharing with a combination of proven legacy methods and leading edge modernity. So some of the old ways and some of the new ways. Some of the old ways actually work really well, and they are time tested, and they work because they're still in use. I give you email, for example, but leading edge modernity as well. ActivityPub being one example, which is as a notion is encapsulated in our MyMuni and Welcome initiatives. So those are intended to be public-facing information sharing platforms. MyMuni focused on local people in a municipality or a community, Muni, and Welcome focused on people who visit. And certainly the Greater Vegas area has plenty of the latter. Now, if we had people interested in working on these initiatives, among others that we are pursuing, that would be a thing, wouldn't it? But first, they need to know that these exist. And so we need an egg to get to the chickens to make more eggs. The old saying, which came first. So, civic volunteers, one of the missing ingredients. Winter must become spring at some point, right? And so another pendulum might and ideally will swing back towards the taking of some interest at locality scope in what goes on, like what's going on in my city, in my neighborhood, etc., and how individual contribution in a cohort scheme, that is multiplying effort with collaboration in a cohort, can make a difference, which it can. In these short attention span times in which we find ourselves, making that appeal is a challenge, no doubt, making FOMO, fear of missing out, a key driver. In other words, if people are unaware, we need to get the word out, and then they should feel interested and perhaps even empowered to join in. Show, don't tell in a place like Greater Vegas, where show me what you got is what people want to know first. So it might work. That means that we have to deploy things with a skeletal crew, which at the time of this recording is 100% focused at the moment on this recording. The Challengers Initiative, for example, is one of the building blocks that I personally feel is a huge gap to fill here in Greater Vegas, to recognize and celebrate individual and team participation in challenges of various kinds. I always use the Congressional Apps Challenge and the NASA Space Apps Challenge as examples, but there are so many others, which we never hear about, by the way, and not all of them are app related. So not everything has to be tech, not everything is an app, etc. Not everything is code. Ideally, this will help to plant the seed, a seed or two perhaps, about participation in innovation, where innovation need not be limited to tech. Accolades can help when people, the sound of applause, the joy of receiving kudos. If the culture of innovation in the Greater Vegas area can evolve a bit. And by the way, as I always try to remind people, I'm not saying there's none. I'm not saying there is zero innovation in Vegas, but I am saying the culture of innovation could use a little TLC, I guess, tender loving care. The Challengers platform, once deployed, is a piece of this, as is a focus on innovation and participation in general, which is why a new take on local media and local networking. And these are related, but they are not the same thing. Local media, local networking, you're probably thinking, oh, you mean social media and social networking? Kind of. Which is why we have our MyMuni and Welcome initiatives and why they are so important. So media and network. A recent legal engagement. It was Facebook versus WhatsApp, I think. It was Facebook versus whomever regarding their purchase or acquisition of WhatsApp. I believe that's what it was. But it was a recent, I can't speak today, we're running out. A recent legal engagement appears to have made it precedent, the law of the land, that social media and social networks are essentially the same thing now. That is a business case gone legal, if you ask me. In other words, from a legal perspective, especially for the purposes of that suit, that legal action, it's a non-starter, nothing to see here. They're all the same now. The way to that conclusion is to make people and businesses and other entities all equivalent so that you follow a company or your colleagues, you get news and updates from each. You can comment, you can interact, you can engage and all that. But one has a budget to drive engagement with brand management and marketing and whatnot. So guess what happens? I mean, one of entities and businesses, the commercial entities of whatever size and shape versus individuals. Whether it's Instagram for social media or LinkedIn for social network, they all become algorithmic advertising platforms. So now you tend to see what people are willing to pay for. It's pretty simple. Is your social network still valuable at that point? Or do you have 839 followers that don't interact with you in the slightest? Network and media outreach both benefit from visuals, for better or worse, so we need to make our initiatives eye-catching in their descriptions. That means open graph images to go with brief yet interesting description text, and of course alternative text, to help tell our story in that environment. And we do need to be aware of the existing platforms on the off chance, fix one typo here, not off change, on the off chance that someone wants to share our stuff with URLs and links, not on Instagram. They broke the internet. They broke their part of it. Someone wants to share stuff with their network or audience or whatever, so we need to be able to interact through that mechanism. Development of a usable icon set for component project representation and a pervasive use of visualization with alternative text as a standard, of course, is a high priority work in progress to this end. So in other words, in order to be more appealing, I suppose you could say, in the social media / network landscape as it has devolved to its current forms, we need to be more interactive and engaging in the ways that people are using these tools today. But our embrace of ActivityPub and the Fediverse will ideally bring some much needed openness to information sharing in this oasis, the Greater Vegas area, fitting into the existing news landscape to some extent, but also enabling more open sharing without gatekeepers, without the algorithm-driven walled gardens, without the ad-driven mainstream, and so on. I don't know if you know this, but local media here in Vegas doesn't really spend a tremendous amount of time on the so-called startup scene, various key industries that kind of make the news. The front page news of the Greater Vegas area is typically crime, somebody winning some money at a casino, a residency at a whatever property. Are you getting the feel for things here? So we are embracing the kind of the leading edge in that regard. We'll try to see if we can be innovative in that area. The old ways still all exist, and they will continue to thrive, and we should be able to interoperate, and everything I'm talking about does. But innovation is not about accepting the status quo. It's quite the opposite, in fact. And so, we got to live up to our name. So, make it so, to continue with the TNG reference. Perhaps I've been tainted by my time in Silicon Valley, which began in 1993, just when things started getting interesting. Wait a minute, that's not quite right. Things started getting interesting in Silicon Valley many decades prior. In fact, more than 100 years prior, if we're being honest. One of the factors that made Silicon Valley what it was, and I will not claim that it is still the same as it was, that is another conversation for another time. But one of the things that made it interesting, made it the Silicon Valley that it was, its culture of innovation, which was enabling and encouraging of such things. It is no coincidence that our foundation purpose statement includes those terms, enable and encourage. One cannot sprinkle cash over a region and convert it to the next Silicon Valley. Put air quotes around that if you like. And we cannot suppose that ideas and possibilities only come from a select few. Why would I write select view? No idea. Innovation can happen when and where we least expect it, which is why the show me what you got needs to migrate to show me what you're thinking or something similar if we are to be viable innovation, to be a viable innovation hub at all. See what happens when I don't include all of the letters. Be a viable innovation hub at all. Driving the continued evolution of our innovation culture is on our agenda for our foundation, to be sure. And again, innovate for Vegas. We need to have innovation culture in order to be anywhere near where LinkedIn posts seem to believe we are. My opinion. I don't know if you know this. I like to express my opinion. On that note, final item of the final point. As 2025 draws to a close, we have looked back with our retrospective episode last week and some other reflections in previous episodes, and we continue to look forward. There is a lot to do and not a lot of hands or minds taking part yet. If there is one take-home lesson in Vegas, it is that making things happen is not a matter of waiting for someone else to do it, nor is it a matter of waiting for a response. In the words of a great philosopher living out his days on Dagobah a long time ago, it's a galaxy far away kind of thing. Try not. Do or do not. There is no try. Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you for listening as always. Do continue to check out our websites. You can continue to listen to our audio programs. If you are finding our audio programs on LinkedIn, be aware that we're going to change how and what we post on LinkedIn. The frequency and content will be tuned a bit. We'll try to have a little bit more visualization for the projects or our initiatives and the component projects. And we'll try to illustrate our project progress So how our initiatives are moving along, using those avenues, but not necessarily posting. Our posts have really been this audio program, and that needs to change a little bit. Our audience is not clicking on podcast links on LinkedIn, so got to change. Our social media outreach in general, we'll see if it's actually valuable or not, but we need to work on information sharing and discovery in the greater Vegas area and beyond. So that's where we're looking for 2026, not to mention our Smarter City Hackathon and some other stuff. So continue to listen to our audio programs. They aren't going anywhere, but maybe up into the future. Excelsior. And that's where I'll leave it for today. Thank you, and have a happy and safe new year if you're listening to this before. But have a happy new year every single day. A new year begins every moment. Take care now.